Okay, hello everybody. My name is Elizabeth Wilkinson. I'm one of the careers consultants at the University of Manchester Career Service. And this is a session I'm running today on can't decide on a career? Maybe you don't have to. So I want to share with you some ideas of how you can kind of creep up and sneak up on your possible career choices, or maybe not actually have to make a choice at all. Career is something which can sometimes just evolve and happen to you, and that's okay. Okay, so some of this idea about having to have a career choice and have everything planned out in front of you really relies on kind of old school careers. And in the old world, in terms of graduate careers, it was fairly obvious. What you did was graduate, joined big company X, you went in on a graduate training scheme, you then became a first line manager, then became a more senior manager, and eventually you stayed with the same company and you retired. That's all very well and good, but frankly, most careers aren't like that these days. So in the new world, today's world, it can get very, very much more complicated. You can have some different moves in terms of upwards, but also sideways. You can then decide, actually, you know what? I don't like this career at all. I'm going to do something completely different. I might have a career break. So that might be for family reasons or just a sabbatical. I wouldn't blame a lot of people these days, having had the kind of pandemic existence that you've had. That I think there's been quite a few people later on who will think, you know what, I'm going to have a year off to have some fun. You might have multiple employees at the same time. You might do some bit of freelance. You might decide, actually, I enjoy working for myself, so I'm going to do that for a while, and then I'll retire, but I might do some voluntary work. So it all gets much more complicated. There are lots of people also who are doing more than one job at once. The idea about having portfolio careers and so on. So I'll talk a little bit about that and how that might be able to be part of your kind of career journey. So what am I going to cover today? Well, I'm going to start out with a little matter of what is the secret to career success. I'll put a question mark on the end of that because I can't guarantee you this, but we've done some research which I think could help you. I'll talk about different career paths and show you that some career paths just aren't obvious. I'll then try to kind of bring this back to you personally, and I want to use Mentimeter to get you thinking about yourself, because developing your own career selection criteria I think is a really important part of choosing a career. It can very much sometimes feel like you're trying to fit into somebody else's box. Actually, you have a choice, and I think it's important to bring that back to yourself, and we'll talk about how you can do that. We'll talk about some standard ways you could explore alternative careers that you might be interested in, do some feasibility checks to see what's right for you, what's possible for you. And then what are you going to do in terms of choosing, or do you even have to? And then just to kind of remind you about what you can do right now to get kickstarted on this journey of a lifetime. It's going to be fun. It may not always be easy, but it's going to be fun. So let's go to the secret of career success. So in terms of the secret to career success, we did some research with one of our organizational psychology professors some years ago. And he and his team looked at some of our own recent graduates who got into kind of really great aspirational graduate careers. We also looked at some of our own recent graduates who were taking a little bit longer to do that, to put it politely. And they found out what was the difference between the two groups of people. And they came up with a big complicated competency framework. Over the years, I've had to get it down to just simply 3 things. So my secret to career success are be curious. So the people who were successful quickly soon after graduating were the ones who were looking out for what's out there, what are the opportunities which are out there, what are the possible careers I could go for. They were also curious about themselves though. What do I enjoy? I don't know if I'm any good at this. I'll have a go and find out. And so that kind of curiosity about themselves was just as important as being curious about what was out there. Then there was be connected. And yes, it's very important to understand about how to write CVs and how to do interviews and how to deal with the etiquette of dealing with employers. So that being connected to employers was important. It was also important to be connected to your friends and family. And that was something which I think we thought was going to be fairly obvious. But we had no idea that with a lot of students that we spoke to, it turned out it was a big taboo to talk about what you wanted to do with your life and what you wanted to do with your career for all sorts of perfectly reasonable reasons. But actually, being able to share and talk to other people and rehearse ideas was a really important part of being successful quickly. The final bit was being courageous. Now, some people, courage is jumping out of an airplane with a parachute on your back. For me, courage would be standing up in front of a bunch of 8-year-olds and trying to get them in queues. Terrifying, that would. The thing about being courageous was it was about the people who kind of spotted opportunities or were always on the lookout for, oh, that might work for me. That would be interesting. Why shouldn't I have a go at that? And then also, if they did try things and it didn't go well, they were able to bounce back. Now, these three things, being curious, connected, and courageous, all kind of intermixed, and they relied on each other. So the idea about spotting an opportunity because you're being curious and you're on the lookout for things. And you think, have a go, why not have a go? You do something, it either goes well or maybe it doesn't go well. So what you do is you talk to your friends and your family about it. And by explaining to other people, you're learning to process it. You figure out, what did I learn from that experience? Hopefully you'll get some support from them if it didn't go well, and get encouragement to have another go. And so these kind of things all feed around on each other. So I would say be curious, be connected, and be courageous. And we often find that this isn't just for brand new graduates. When I've explained this to some of my former colleagues who are also in graduate recruitment, as I used to be, we can all identify that these are the kind of attributes which are common to people, not just at the start of their graduate career, but later on in their careers. This is the kind of things which will keep you going for a long, long time, all the way through your career. I would like to add just one more kind of slide for this in terms of the being courageous, because I think there are some tactics for looking out for things which I think are very, very important and will give you the best opportunities. You've got to dare to try. Sometimes I actually dare people to have a go at things that they're talking about in terms of their career, as long as it's not too dangerous, obviously. Are you the kind of person who will spot opportunities and think, well, it might be fun, might be tricky, but I'd certainly learn something. What am I going to learn? Who might I meet if I have a go at doing this? If I have a go at doing this, is there something I could put on my CV? Are there some achievements I could put on my CV? So having that mindset of this could be interesting, exciting, fun, it could add, is a really important kind of career tactic. I think also I like people who've got that, who think about the fallback position. They're not necessarily going to risk everything on one fairly risky, dodgy venture, but thinking about, well, if this all goes wrong, could I still pay the rent? Can I eat? Once you've got that covered, then it kind of gives you the permission to have a go into some slightly interesting things which might not come off, but you never know. And then the bit about being prepared to think, well, I might as well just apply. I might as well ask them for something. I might as well suggest this to my boss. Because what's the worst that could happen? In most cases, the worst that could happen is somebody says no or ignores your approach. That's no big deal. That's when you need your friends to just reconfirm to you that you are worth it and you've got a lot to offer. And so, that will encourage you to have another go and to bounce back and be resilient. So if you can be courageous, be connected, be curious, and dare to try, I think you've pretty well got your career strategies all made up. So that's enough about me talking to you. What I'd like to do now is to share our Mentimeter polling with you. Let me just share this. Okay, right. So for anybody who hasn't used this before, Mentimeter is an interactive tool which allows you to interact with some of the questions that I've got for you. I can't see individual people's responses or anything like that, so this is very much, you can do this anonymized. If you could go to either www.menti.com on your phone or on another tab on your browser, depending on how you're watching this, and enter that code 52449880. Yeah, one person's got in because there's a little, if you click the little heart symbol, that allows me to know that you've actually managed to get to the Mentimeter slides. That's great. You can also use the QR code to get directly there if you're using your phone. I'm assuming that quite a few of you will have used this during your university career, but if you haven't, it's a lovely little tool. Definitely worth using if you are ever going to have to do this in work. It's quite a good way of sharing things. Say that now, we haven't actually tried to see if it'll work properly, obviously. Okay, so we've got at least 23 of you who've got it, which is great. Okay, right, so let me just move on to my next slide. Okay, I'd really love to know what's your current thinking about your career, because I don't know who's, what's your motivation for coming along to this session. So is it that you've got no ideas about what's next, or you've got too many ideas, or that you can't decide between two or more, or you haven't really started thinking, and that's okay, or you know what you'd love to do, but how could you possibly get that? Or it might be something completely different. So, okay. Well, that's a really nice mixture of people. I can't remember whether I set this up that you can have more than one choice. Probably did, because I think there's quite a lot of people. Actually, it might be a number of those things which apply to you. Okay, that's lovely. So we've got somebody with no ideas. That's fine. I'll give you some strategies for how to generate some ideas. Plenty of people with too many ideas. That is lovely, because that's the enthusiastic perspective to take. If you can't decide between two or more ideas, I can't guarantee to give you that decision today, but give you some ideas to get you thinking about what might be important to you. Those who haven't started yet, that's fine. You have started now because you've turned up to this session, so that's great. You know what you'd love to do, but it's not realistic. Sometimes there are ways. That's one where very often, the chance to maybe come and talk to one of us individually might be able to help you. Just think through ways you might start to approach your dream career somehow. And then there's something else. I couldn't put a kind of a free text box in there, I'm afraid. But again, you maybe want to put something like that in the chat. Okay, so that's where you're thinking in your career, which is great. I'm going to show you some examples of some of our own recent graduates and alumni, and what they actually have done in their career. But I want you to figure out which degree ended up in which job. So we've got pharmacy, history, archaeology and anthropology, biology, geography, maths, and religions and theology. And the jobs that they've ended up in some order, are a strategy consultant, BT, a lead financial accountant for United Utilities, a careers advisor via various refugee support charities. We've got somebody who's a head of marketing in a sports technology company, somebody who's a technical director, I think that's IT technical director with Deloitte, a professional services company, an NHS doctor, and kind of wild card, a government World Trade Organization trade negotiator working in fisheries and agriculture for DEFRA. Okay. So I wonder if you can guess who's doing what. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, can you match up the degree with the job? Now it's free text, so you can submit as many answers as you want. You can maybe go for all the ones which you think are obvious. But yeah, see if you can come up with one or more of who is in which job. So I'm looking at NHS doctor, seems fairly obvious, doesn't it? Yeah, I was just about to say that, but pharmacy, could have been pharmacy now with NHS doctor. It's interesting. But biology is an obvious one. I do know a biologist, one of our biology, I think it's biomedical science graduates, worked with the university with biological sciences for a year, and then went off to a kind of a medical marketing type company, and is now well on his retraining career into becoming an NHS doctor. So one is pharmacist for the doctor, geography being a government trade negotiator. Now that does sound reasonable, doesn't it? Okay. So I've got a few. History, head of marketing in a sports tech. History, doing head of marketing with sports tech, and religion and theology being careers advisor. We have had religion and theology graduates as careers advisors. There's quite a few of us, in fact, I think. History being a careers advisor. All I the ones who are nice analytical would give me proper numerical and alphanumerical choices. Shall I tell you the truth? It's a straight line relationship. So our pharmacy graduate, that's Demetria, she's now a strategy consultant with BT. We're doing a range of kind of admin type roles through lockdown and so on in working in recruitment consultancy as a pharmacist. She's a qualified pharmacist in MPharm. Our history PhD, no less. He's now the lead financial accountant with United Utilities. We've got an archaeology and anthropology graduate who's a careers advisor. I'll show you her career path next. Biology, head of marketing for a sports tech company. It's amazing where our biology graduates get to. Geography is technical director at Deloitte. One of our maths graduates retrained as an NHS doctor. And religions and theology. That's Ruth Hadley, who's a PhD religion and theology postgrad, who's now a government WTO trade negotiator with DEFRA. Who knew that you could get there from a religions and theology PhD? Okay. So you can see that your degree doesn't have to define you. An awful lot of jobs are open to people from all sorts of different backgrounds. And although some of these people will have gone into jobs which seem kind of obvious as a first step, they can swerve sideways and you never quite know where they're going to end up. So let me show you one real career path. Okay. This is Rebecca. Rebecca's friend and colleague who I've learned is now down in Oxford University. She did her PhD with us. She did her first degree at Cambridge in archaeology and anthropology. She then did an MA with us at the University of Manchester in international relations. She's done a PG Cert as doing social research methods and did a PhD with us in international relations. Mixed in amongst there's a whole kind of other career with charities, working with refugees, doing training, doing teaching, doing policy research, all sorts of stuff. And there's a whole load of things I've actually missed out of her career because there are so many things interspersed. One of the things which is interesting to point out is that some of these really interesting roles working with things like refugee charities or working with NGOs, they're not always permanent jobs. It's quite a feature of those kind of careers that they're often fixed term contracts, often associated with project funding. And so what you do find is that you'll find people changing roles quite often if they're interested in those sectors. So don't feel worried if you want to go into something like that, something just charity work or NGO work, and you can't find a permanent job. Don't worry, you're unlikely to. 6-month contracts, 1-year contracts, that's perfectly normal. Okay. I was toying whether to tell you the next one, but I might as well. Okay, let's show you the next one. Okay, to show you just how these careers can develop. So personally, I'm a chemistry with maths graduate, not from Manchester. Which of these jobs do you think I have done? Okay, you've obviously got one for free. I have been a careers consultant. I'll give you that one. But which of these other jobs do you think I've done? And you can vote for more than one. Okay, yes, I'm glad that some of you thought that I am a careers consultant. Okay. Okay. Right, I'll tell you the actual story. When I was a chemistry and maths graduate, the only thing I knew was I wanted to run away from chemistry labs as fast as possible. So I've never been a research chemist. Sorry about that. I still kind of like science, but I just didn't like lab work. So I applied for GCHQ. And they never told me what I would do, but all the exams I had to go through were about being a code breaker, breaking codes, which is something I'd always liked to do for fun. But it took over a year to get security clearance, in which time I got kind of cold feet. So I found a job within 2 days flat to retrain as a software engineer. And I worked in software and telecoms for, in total, I think it was about 7-8 years. But during that time, I moved sideways with the company because I got bored with writing software. It was in the days of writing assembler code and machine code a long time ago. And I then became their graduate recruitment manager. So I did that for a couple of years. Then I changed company, worked my way up to being a divisional HR manager in a big industrial company. And then again, moved sideways within that company to become an engineering production manager. Did that for a couple of years, at which point a lot of things changed in the company. I thought, you know what, I'm going to go. I've had enough of this. I wanted to go back and retrain, and I came to the University of Manchester and retrained as a trainee temporary careers advisor. And many years later, I'm still here. I could not have predicted any of that. That was absolutely outside my realms of possibility when I left university. But things just develop. And some of the skills that you have early on will come back and suddenly become useful later. Told you I ran away from chemistry labs. But when I was working for a polymer science company, I suddenly discovered that the fact that I could talk to the techies at the interview about techie stuff actually helped get me the job as an HR person. So you never quite know. So all that's trying to do is not say how great I am. It's about you can't predict. And if you're just open to opportunities and think, you know what, I might as well ask. Several of those opportunities came about because I turned up and thought, well, why not? Yeah, okay. So let's think about ways that you can explore different career paths. Just move some of these things. Okay. I think exploring real career paths and seeing what they're really like, not the kind of standard things you read about on careers websites, is very, very informative. One of the most useful ways of exploring real career paths and finding just how messy they are is to do some exploring on LinkedIn. A lot of people are not sure what to do with LinkedIn at the start of their careers, but I think doing some exploring and using it as a career research tool is really, really useful. So one of the useful ways of doing this is each university has its own homepage. So you search for that and find the University of Manchester homepage. And then you can browse through alumni profiles. So you'll see on the first page that it's just a database search. So it's not absolutely accurate, but it gives you a kind of a fair representation. So University of Manchester, the records of almost 250,000 alumni. But then you can filter down. You can filter down by where they live, where they work. Now, they're not all, those 5,800 are not all working at the University of Manchester. That includes all new students or recent graduates. Oops. Talk about what they do. You can filter down by what they do, but you can also filter down by what they studied. Now, sometimes the degree descriptions aren't exactly what was on your degree certificate because it's LinkedIn's version of degree subjects, but it does help you get focused down. And then you can get down to a much smaller subset of people. And once you get down to there, then you can actually see people's profiles. Obviously, I've pixelated this a little bit so you can't see it in detail. But if you find people who are working in the kind of careers that you're interested in, maybe from your degree, it's worth at least contacting them and saying, look, any chance I could make a connection with you, I'd love to just learn from your experience. Maybe pick your brains and find out a little bit more about what you've done, how you got there. Just remind them that you've graduated in basically what's been in a pandemic, so you haven't had the same opportunities as previous alumni. And I would hope that they will be happy to pay back and at least tell you about their career paths. Okay, so that's some of the kind of real career paths that you can get. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how you can start to get closer to what you want. And one of the tools I normally use is to try to suggest careers to people and see what your reaction is. So I've got a special career service career selector now, and I'm going to spin our wheel, hopefully, and we'll find out what career you're all going to go into. So let's go. These are all careers which could be done from any degree discipline. You lucky people, you're all going to go and be HR managers. Okay? So think about how you feel. What's your gut reaction to this? If I told you that we made the career choice for you, you're now going to be an HR manager, are you thinking, yep, this is it, this is the one for me, or it sounds interesting, or no way, I'd hate to do that, or not sure. If you don't know what an HR manager is, okay, so we're starting to see some differences. Everybody wants to do different things, but you will often have a reaction to job titles. And that's important to tune into. I think it's really important to pay attention to your gut feel, because there's something which is underneath that reaction to that job title. So there's some people say, oh, not in a million years. What is it about being an HR manager that makes you think, no way, I hate that? It may not be accurate, it doesn't matter. It's what is it that you're trying to access about yourself? Is it that you wouldn't want to deal with difficult people or difficult situations, or you don't want to be stuck in an office all the time? For those who think, oh, I'd love to do that, is it because you think you can be with people all the time? Okay, the handy hint is HR is often not about being with people all the time. So, okay, so think about the type of reaction you get to that. I'm going to give you another one. See if we can get better, more accurate fix this time. So let's see what you're going to be this time. Oh, social work. Okay. So how are you feeling about that? So I said that we've now changed our minds, and actually the country needs lots of social workers. Somebody got an instant reaction to that one. Yeah, it's a really tough job. Really tough job. I could never be a social worker. I could never handle that. To be very emotionally resilient. Yeah, there's some. Yeah, okay. So there's people saying it sounds interesting. There's some people say, oh, love it, love it, love it. And there's several people think, oh, I don't know what we do. I don't know what your social work would do. So again, think about what it is that made you think, oh, I'd love to do that, or really would hate to do it. That's telling you something about what are your selection criteria. So I think one of the most simple ways of getting started on what you should do in your career is just have 3 lists. Yes, maybe, no. Yes, no, maybe is the way I normally talk about it. On your yes list are things about your career which you think you definitely want. I'm not saying you put a job title on there, but you could do if you want. But it might be, I want to have something which has this salary, or it's got to be in the Greater Manchester area. Or it may be things on your no list. And some of those gut reactions sometimes tell you a lot about what you don't want. So it could be, definitely don't want anything to do with numbers, or I definitely don't want to be sort of in an office all the time. I want to be out and about. The maybe lists are the ones where you can, things you're prepared to compromise on for depending on the right job. So there are lots of different types of things you can put on your yes, no, maybe list. And what you want to do is kind of start to develop your own career selection criteria. Here's just some suggestions of prompts you might want to think. What kind of people do you want to be around all the time? Where do you want to be? And that could be a location, or it could be a type of work environment. What about salary? For some people, it's like, as long as I've got minimum, that's fine. For others, it's, you know what, I'm aiming high. Both is fine. Both are fine. What about working patterns? Work-life balance, or it may be about, I want to be traveling all over the country, all over the world. And the one which is actually quite informative for yourself is, what's the purpose of the job? What is it that matters to me that I want to be doing as part of my role? These can evolve, they can change. And this is why, your career will evolve, and your selection criteria will also evolve. But I think it's quite useful to be able to articulate what it is that you're looking for. That also helps with that difficult interview question of, why do you want this job? Why do you want to come and work for here? So yeah, remember that bit said about sharing with other people? This is where nobody can identify you, so nobody's going to say, who's put down salary. I think that's honest. What are some of the things which are on your selection criteria? And it's okay to get it wrong as well. Crisis prone. Can't see underneath the pictures on the screen. My belt. I'm not sure if that's you are crisis prone or you want to work in a crisis prone environment. Close to my loved one. That's a lovely thing to put down there. Something which is stimulating. Something which has diversity. That's great. Secure work environment. Freelancing not for you. I'm sorry, I'm going to be talking a little about freelancing later. Okay. Manchester, excellent. Working as part of a team. Opportunities for learning. Okay. Purpose, helping people make a real difference. Tell you what, the only thing I knew when I left university was I definitely wanted to work in the public sector. Something I believed strongly in. I then spent 17 years in private industry and thoroughly enjoyed it. What did I know? So sometimes, you can put down your selection criteria and you think, well, I'll compromise for this. And it turns out, actually, you didn't really know what you wanted. But that's okay too. I eventually got back to helping people for kind of the public good. In other words, you. Okay, some great suggestions here. Acceptance of neurodiverse employees. There's a lot more awareness and understanding and acceptance of that these days. It's becoming quite important to a lot of employers. I never want to be bored. Okay, find yourself a challenging job, you'll never be bored. Okay, some really nice selection criteria there. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint slides and we'll take you through about how you might use some of these selection criteria, which you can develop yourself. The yes, no, maybe list is not hard to do. And then start to look at alternatives. What you then do is you match up those selection criteria with the alternatives that you hear about, and it helps you figure out, is this something that I could, which actually meets my criteria? So let me go back to the slides. Okay. So let's talk about looking for alternatives. Some of you may have already had a go at this, but one of the most useful alternatives that I know of is using things like Prospect's website. Prospects, they're actually based on the University of Manchester campus. They're not part of the university, but we know them and we can trust them. That's good. So they have something called Prospects Career Planner, and that's one of these quizzes where you type in what you want out of life and out of work. Remember those selection criteria? And they've asked exactly the same questions as they asked you. They asked them of people in 400 plus types of graduate and professional level work. And it's purely and simply, if what they say they're getting their job matches with what you say you want, it throws it up as a possibility. Half an hour out of your life, worth a try. So that's one way of maybe getting some suggestions, particularly jobs that you've never heard of or you didn't realise were within reach. The other way, the other part of the website, which I think is particularly useful, is the job profiles. So if you look under the jobs and work experience part of the website and tab down, then there's the job profiles. And the job profiles is where they talk about these 400 plus graduate and professional types of work. You can either look by sector or by alphabetical. And it's everything, as you can see there, from academic librarian to acupuncturist. And it does go all the way down to zoologist, obviously. So what it does is for each of those different ideas, it tells you in one page, one just big long text page, what the job involves, what responsibilities you'd have, what are the salaries, both at the start and later on, which is useful to know. What about standard working hours and the working style, what you'd expect there? What about qualifications needed? Is it open to any degree background? And in the UK, we're quite unusual in that a lot of jobs are open to a wide range of degree backgrounds. Or could you maybe do a conversion course? So IT or psychology are often ways that you can convert into those areas. What about the skills you'd use in that role? What about the work experience you might need to get and how to look for it? Because even if you haven't got the right work experience now, maybe you could do that for the first part of your graduate career. What about finding jobs and looking at employers and specialist job sites? That I think is more important than just typing into Google. And then how might your career and profession develop? So it's a short amount of time to spend trying to figure out a starting point for the rest of your life. Okay, so that's one way. You can get the computer to help you. but you can also learn from other people. And I think that's also a very useful way of trying to explore alternatives. And this is where talking to your friends, family, and so on can be really, really helpful. So one of the ways to do that is to find contacts. And this is about daring. So remember that being courageous, you've got to dare to tell people what you'd love to do. Although you will say, everybody will tell me I don't have any contacts. My parents are both teachers, they know nobody. They know pupils. They know parents who come to pupil to open days, and those parents are all in different jobs. So everybody has some sort of contacts, and particularly if you're at the University of Manchester, if you can talk to other people who've made it here as a group, you're a privileged bunch of people. You have amazing social capital, and you never know who your friend's sister is married to, or if you go to a family wedding, you'll meet cousins there, and you suddenly realize, oh, that's what you do now. Interesting. Tell me more about that. I can't really do this in this environment, but if I'm in a face-to-face group of people, I know that if I can get at least a dozen people together, any job, any even stupid jobs you can come up with, we will find a contact in that room. I found contacts for taxidermists, crisp taster for Walker's Crisps. Found somebody who's working in R&D for Golden Wonder Crisps. So, it never fails. I had 12 PhD medical scientists in the room. Somebody said lion tamer. 2 contacts. Okay, promise you it works. Next thing to do once you've found somebody to learn from, you make it easy for other people to say yes to you. Don't make it sound like it's hard for them to do. So what you want to do is you highlight any connection to them. So if you're contacting somebody, rather than trying to contact somebody completely out of the blue, which doesn't often work, frankly, you could say, actually, your sister gave me your name as somebody who's working in this area. Or use the alumni link on LinkedIn. Just ask for information. Just want to pick your brains. That's the kind of pitch which doesn't sound like it's too difficult. Just ask for 15, 20 minutes of their time. And if you can get an in-person meeting, the best thing to do is, I'll meet you for breakfast before work, I'm buying. Who's going to turn you down? If you've got a mutual connection, you've asked for 20 minutes of the time, you'll meet them in Starbucks, you'll buy them coffee and a bun, they get free breakfast, and they get to talk about themselves for 20 minutes. It doesn't sound hard. Then what you do is you ask about them. So most people don't mind talking about themselves and their own experience, but they're not necessarily familiar with you and your experience and giving you careers advice. So focus on learning from them. But you can take it up to the next level. Small things you could do if you get the chance to have a meeting with somebody, show them your current CV and get their feedback on it. What's missing? What could you change? Could you move things around? Give you some suggestions about things you could do next. Then what you do is you follow up with a thank you email. And it's your opportunity to say, thanks, really enjoyed learning about this. I've updated my CV with your suggestions, which I've included just for information, purely for information. And they've got an updated, targeted CV. And just, a comment along the lines of just let me know if you hear of any hot leads for jobs in this field, and I'll follow it up myself. It's a nice, simple way of trying to take it on to the next level. If you really want to make it easy, come along to some of our alumni events. The whole point of our alumni events is they come along because they want to help you learn how to do that horrible thing called networking. It's the easy way to practice and to try. So even our graduates can access our events for up to 2 years after you've graduated. So you can still sign up and come along to some of our alumni events, even if you've already graduated. Okay, let's figure out other ways of looking for alternatives. Yes, you can browse. To be honest, I bet you've tried typing in jobs in whatever, into Google or into LinkedIn or Indeed, and it just kind of throws stuff at the screen at you, and it's really overwhelming. So I would suggest some other strategies which might be more manageable. Things like Career Connect. Career Connect is obviously our database site of the Career Service at the University of Manchester. It's where you book this event. And when you log in, if you do the search for opportunities, this will then show you the vacancies that we're advertising, where you have to log in to see them. And at the moment, this was done last week, and for full-time jobs, we had over 1,500 full-time job adverts on there. So there are plenty to go at. Lots and lots of adverts to have a look at. And sometimes, these are the people who want to target University of Manchester students and graduates. So they're a pretty good starting point. If you're looking for some more ideas though, then if you look at the main career service website, and the web address is down there on the screen, careers.manchester.ac.uk, there's a tab which is called Which Career? And that gives you our best starting points for careers in a whole range of different areas that our graduates are interested in. And included on those in that information is some of our suggestions for how do you search for jobs, for entry level and graduate level jobs within that field. That will get you to some job sites which, they'll get lost in amongst all the other Google searches. Probably better to go for some of these specialist sites. But sometimes, just spotting an advert for something which sounds interesting, I might as well apply, can be the start of your amazing graduate career. It's okay if you do it that way. Nobody's going to tell you off about that. Right, so let's go on to some of the trickier bits. So what if you want to do everything? We had quite a lot of people who said, oh God, so many things. It's a couple of strategies. There was a really good book, which I think unfortunately is out of print now, which was something like, what do I do if I want to do everything, literally? And it's one of our academic researchers who pointed it out to me and said, finally, somebody sees me. This is me, this is who I am. And a couple of the different strategies that we pointed out in that book were, if you don't mind doing things in sequence, if you like to really focus on something and really get yourself lost in it, and then you kind of lose interest and you want to do something else next, and then you want to do something else next, it's okay to change jobs and employers. Okay? You'll get a lot of people saying, oh, you can't change, you seem to be chopping and changing all the time. Well, it doesn't have to be all the time, but for some careers, it's normal to change regularly. Okay? I talked about the charity sector, the creative sector, they absolutely operate in this way. Anything which is project funded is where fixed term contracts are normal, because they will get funding for a particular project, they will recruit a project officer or staff for that, for the length of that contract, and then you go and look for something else. If you have a look on LinkedIn, people working in particularly the NGO or charity sector, or certainly in the creative sector, you're going to find multiple jobs. Those are the really messy careers. So that might reassure you. Sometimes fixed term or temporary jobs can be a really good entry point for some careers. Even things like science, pharmaceutical industry, there's becoming a bit of a culture of sometimes working for an employment agency. You don't actually work for the big name employer, you work for the agency and you get placed on an employer's site. And they may be fixed term jobs or they may be temporary jobs. And then ultimately, if you do actually do well, then you might be able to turn that into a permanent job. One important point to point out, if you are thinking about changing things around, you can sometimes change type of job and employer at the same time. Obviously people do that, but it's much easier to change just one thing. So if you can get to work for a bigger employer and then move sideways, that's often an easier move than trying to change completely. Similarly, if you've got experience in one type of work, then it's much easier to go and change to another employer. So try and think about factoring that into your preferences, into who you go and work for. If you want to do this, I'd like to do lots of different things in sequence. So if you like different types of work, maybe the thing to do is go for a bigger employer, aiming to move sideways into a different type of work, and then change employer, and then move sideways again. Just realised that's exactly what I did. I didn't think I needed that, but obviously I did. So that can be a way of getting that variety. Alternatively, why not try them all at once? Works for some people. So if you want to do things in parallel, there are some jobs which allow you lots of variety. Stay with me on teaching. You could be a geography teacher. but you could also be involved in putting on the school play. Oh, and by the way, yeah, you coach the netball team, and you do the school debating society, and you maybe do some school trips as well. It's a way of being able to have all human life in one job, as long as you don't mind working with young people. Or if you want to work for a startup company, you'll be doing everything. You will be marketing manager, you'll be making tea for the venture capitalists who are coming in, you'll be hiring somebody, and you'll be driving a forklift truck all in one day. So you get that variety. It's not for everybody, but for the right kind of people, it's great fun. Or you could go for something which is called a portfolio career. Now, you've got to be fairly confident to be able to manage this type of career, but for the, often maybe sometimes at a later stage in your life, you think, no, this is the way I want to work. I want control. So I'm going to do maybe some major freelance work, maybe contracts, and that will bring me in quite a decent sum of money. I'll have a little part-time job which will keep me just ticking over, so I know that there'll always be some money coming in for the rent. And I might do a bit of voluntary work. And then I might have some time off because I've done this massive bit of freelance work. It's paid me enough that I can have 6 months off. So it's a different way of operating, but some people just love that control. The other thing to just think about is, if you want to do everything, it doesn't always have to be your job. An awful lot of people do one job to get paid, and then they do stuff in their voluntary life, in their home life, which is the stuff that really fulfills them. All those people in Amdram, doing their plays and the musicals and so on, often not getting paid for it. They maybe are a logistics manager in their other life, but they know what really turns them on. Okay. And that's okay too. So lots of different things that you could consider. How are you going to decide? Well, there's no quick fix. You've got to figure out what's important to you at this point. And this will change. So what you want to think about first, is it feasible at this stage, what you want to do? And those job profiles and prospects are pretty good at being able to figure out, could I get there from where I am at the moment? How feasible is it? Is it maybe not your ideal job, but it could be the stepping stone to something else, which will then get you to the right job, maybe into the right employer in one of those sideways moves? What are you going to learn? Skills, knowledge, experience, which are going to be needed for the next role? Or who might you get to know? Because again, that might give you some good context to give you the next role. Obviously, you're going to enjoy it. Next one, is it a comfortable fit? Or is it too comfortable? Quite a lot of people get into the trap of, I could get that, I'm familiar, I know what that's all about. And they end up just doing the same thing. They never really progress into what they'd love to do because they're not really ready yet to be courageous enough to take the uncomfortable but challenging role. And then also this bit about decision time. Do you care about what the work is involved? Why are you doing it? Because that's often the key to job satisfaction. A couple of other things to bear in mind if you're thinking about further studies, your next phase. Is it going to add the experience or skills that you need for your preferred career? It's all very well if it's at the right university or it's the right, you can get a place, but is it actually going to get you closer? That's where looking at those prospects profiles can help, because it will tell you whether the qualification is what's needed. But in some cases, it's actually, some kind of careers, it's more about the experience that you get rather than a qualification. You can sometimes test that out by doing things like those LinkedIn searches, alumni searches, and find out what did they do before the course and what did they do after the course. So see where that might fit in. Okay, that's a lot to throw at you. But just want to remind you of some of the fundamental messages, I think, which are going to be useful. These are things which you can take away with you. Being curious, being connected, and being courageous. If you can remember those three things, at various points in your career journey, you'll probably find that one or other of those might be a bit blocked. So people will be doing so much desk research, but they never actually have the courage to apply for anything. Or they'll try stuff and they'll be devastated afterwards when it doesn't work. But they never talk to anybody about how they felt about it, to kind of normalize it and to give them the confidence to go for the next sort of scary opportunity. So dare to try. Spot those opportunities. We're throwing them at you all the time through Career Connect, whether it's events or whether it's vacancies. Think about the fallback position and then just think, why not? What's the worst that can happen? Tell you what, if you're really interested in getting somebody to give you the courage to dare to try, think about coming having a careers appointment with us. Or certainly with me, I'm more than happy to dare people to have a go at doing stuff. I'm thinking through what are the implications. If it doesn't go well, how can we help you deal with that? Or if you've tried something and it doesn't go well and you don't want to talk to your friends and family, we're the people that you can talk to about that. So that kind of reassures you that this isn't the end of the support for you. So we've got ongoing career support. So you can access us for up to 2 years after you've graduated. And that includes one-to-one guidance or interview support and all our employer and alumni panels and so on. So there's loads of stuff we can do for you. If you have a look at that bit.ly link, bit.ly/UOM graduates, that will take you to a whole part of our career service website, which has stuff specifically for you as new graduates. We've got a LinkedIn network. So if you have a look on the Recent Graduate Careers Network, you can join as one of our recent graduates, and that QR code will take you straight through to it. Or you can have a look on that bit.ly link, will take you to the LinkedIn UOM group. So it just means a way of us being able to keep in touch with you, to tell you what's going on, things which might be able to help you.